All right, all right, okay. It is not ESPN's 30 for 30. However, it is my 98 for 98. The 98 seasons in the history of the New York Football Giants. I'm going to try to get it done in 98 days. Probably not going to happen, but I will get it done before the beginning of the new season, which starts September 10th against those Dallas Cowboys. And we're at the 1996 season, final season in the coaching career of Dan Reeves with the New York Football Giants. The 72nd season in the history of the Giants. It's the 77th season in the history of the NFL. NFL started in 1920. Giants started in 1925. So the Giants are 5 years younger than the NFL is. Dan Reeves, I guess, you can also kind of sum it up. Maybe if it had better players, maybe things, the Giants offensively, quarterback wise. Nope. Dan Reeves took two different teams to Super Bowls, lost them all, lost all four of them, all four, 3 times with the Broncos with John Elway, lost all 3. And then he took the Atlanta Falcons to the Super Bowl. Or oddly enough, he wound up losing to the Denver Broncos. But, he had good, as I said, with the Broncos, John Elway, one of the greatest quarterbacks, period, bar none, of all time. I said with Atlanta, they had some very good, offensive weapons. They had a very good team. Very good team. The Giants, offensively, the Giants had Dave Brown and Ken Graham. And then Ken Graham was here 92, 93, 94, I think it was, something like that. Then he left the Giants. And then the Giants had Danny Canal and Dave Brown. And, Giants they were just backups. Dave Brown, Ken Graham, Danny Canal, backups. And and this Dave Brown, this season here was, just he started I think he started every game. It was not very good. He stunk. So, just even back then, the Giants defense was okay. It certainly was adequate. Just once again, as we're going to go over, we're going to see and all that. Just their offense was just not. Especially the quarterback play was just not good. The Giants, thankfully, they were going to get Kerry Collins soon. Okay. Thank goodness. Because they actually had themselves a quarterback. Meanwhile, in 1996, Kerry Collins was the quarterback of the Carolina Panthers in their second season in existence. They went to the championship game. So, the Giants been around since 1925. Here it is 1996, and they have a losing record. Meanwhile, Carolina is in their second year of existence, and they're going to the NFC Championship game. So let's see, what did the New York Football Giants do in the preseason here? All right, they had the usual, the 4 games, right? They're not too good. They went 1-3. They did win the first one, though. They beat the Jacksonville Jaguars and Tom Coughlin, right? On Friday, August 2nd, in Jacksonville, Florida, Municipal Stadium, the Giants won 24-17. This would be the Giants' only preseason victory. The following week on Saturday, August 10th, at home against the Ravens, they lost 37-27. Then the following week, at home, well, it's home for the Jets and the Giants. But on Saturday, August 17th, against the Jets, actually the Giants were the away team. The Giants lost 13-6. Then the final game of the season, the Giants played actually both expansion teams. The final game of the preseason on Friday, August 23rd, 1996. The Giants were at home, and they lost 34-7 to the second-year expansion team, Carolina Panthers. 34-7. Not very, very good. So the Giants went 1-3 in their preseason. Let's see. The Giants, their draft was, how do we put it? One of their best, and one of their picks was one of the absolute worst. Let's go over it, shall we? Let's go. Their absolute worst would be their first overall pick, Cedric Jones. He played for the. He was pick number 5. I mean, the Giants could have had a slew of other guys, but they took pick number 5. Now, what I was understanding, and listening to and all that stuff and everything, was the Giants really wanted like a rusher, an edge rusher or so. Well, 2 picks in front of them, the Cardinals took Simeon Rice. Quite possibly, maybe the Giants had their eye on it, but I mean, the Giants were picking number 5. So Simeon Rice was gone, and Jonathan Ogden was also taken in front of in the Ravens. The Ravens took Jonathan Ogden. But I mean, there was a bunch of other guys, that the Giants could have took. But I mean, if the Giants wanted to go defense, they said, pick number, what was it, 20 what? Pick number 26, Ray Lewis. Giants could have used him. Man, could you imagine teaming him up with him and Jesse Armstead? Ooh, doggy. Ooh, man. Ooh. Ooh. Now we're talking. But the Giants, I mean, it's kind of like what I'm hearing and reading and all of that was, and this is just kind of like, they just did another George Young debacle, first round selection. I mean, his picks were absolutely in the 90s. The first round picks, a lot of them were just trash, absolute pure D trash. This would be another one of them. Cedric Jones, they took him pick number 5. It was defensive end. He played from 96 to 2000. The final game he played in his professional career was the 2000 Super Bowl when the Giants lost to the Ravens 3,422-7. The Giants, the Giants, I believe, let him go after 2000. I think he tried to catch on with the Rams, I think, and he never made their team. So basically that Super Bowl was his final game in his professional career. Now, the thing is that from what I read, is that he was like legally, he was like blind, or he had a problem seeing out of one of his eyes. And apparently, from what I read, anyway, the Giants were kind of aware of that. So he can only rush from one side of the line of scrimmage. He can only be like, I believe it was the right side. He couldn't rush from the left side. So Giants knew this, and they still drafted him anyway. And, he just did not pan out. Let's see, what did he wind up with for his career? It wasn't sacks. Went with 15 career sacks. I mean, the thing is your pick number 5 in the NFL draft. In his first 2 seasons, 1996 and 97, he played in 25 games. He started 2 games. He's pick number 5 in the NFL draft, and his first 2 seasons. Actually, if you want to go like this, his first 3 seasons, he started in 3 games. 3 games in his first 3 seasons. Pick number 5 in the NFL draft. I mean, if you're picking number 5 and you pick somebody number 5 and he only plays in 3 games, starts in 3 games in the first 3 seasons, you done bad. Right, I said, so in his career, he had his first 2 seasons, he didn't even have a sack. Defensive end, didn't even have a sack his first 2 seasons. I mean, absolute, just trash. 1999, he started in 16 games, played in all 16, this, that, and he did have 7.5 sacks. And then in 2000, his final season on the right defensive end, he had 3.5 sacks. But I mean, he was like, something was wrong with one of his eyes. I don't know if he's legally blind or there was something else wrong with it, but I can't say he was totally blind in one of his eyes, but it made it where he can only rush from the right side of the defensive line. And the Giants still took him anyway. So it wound up being an absolute horrible pick for the New York Giants. Absolute horrible pick. But I'm saying, could you imagine if they took Ray Lewis? Wow. Then if the Giants got into the 2000 Super Bowl and they had Ray Lewis, maybe things might have been a little bit different, right? But anyway, it was one of the greatest drafts for the Giants for 2 reasons. The Giants had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 picks, right? every one of their picks, all 7 of them played at least 5 seasons in the NFL. Every one had a career. Now, I'm not going to say I went back over every draft, this, that, and the other thing. That might be something I do when I'm bored one day, but I haven't done it yet. But, I mean, as far as I know, I believe almost every draft I've gone over so far up to this point from 1936 to 1996, okay? Basically, whatever, the 60 years of drafts there. I think this might be the only one so far up to this point where every player had a career in the NFL. Usually they wind up getting a pick here or a pick there that just doesn't pan out at all, doesn't play at all in the NFL. Well, every one of their 7 picks had played for, not only played, but played for at least 5 seasons, which is very impressive. The problem is that, all these guys played, one guy played 13 seasons, one guy played 12 seasons, but the problem is that, with all these guys, they only played like for a short period of time with the Giants, except for their 2nd round selection, which winds up bringing us to be also in addition to one of the greatest drafts of all time, because they drafted in the 2nd round Amani Toomer, their all-time wide receiver in receptions. So in the 2nd round from Michigan, good old Amani Toomer, man, they love those. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable how many guys they picked from Michigan early on. Jared Bunch and Wheatley and Woolfolk and Monty Toomer, and they just love those. George Young loves those guys from Michigan. I don't know what it is, but anyway, they took Monty Toomer, and he played his entire 13-year career with the Giants from 1996 to 2008. He's all-time leading receiver and yards, 668 receptions, 9,497 receiving yards. Just a phenomenal pick for the New York Giants. Absolutely phenomenal pick. That's not even a home run. That's a grand slam. You got to give George Young a lot of props for that one. Amani Toomer wound up being, not only the all-time leading receiver, but just an absolute model teammate, player, for the organization, all that stuff. And I mean, just an outstanding human being. Great pick for the New York Giants. Kind of makes up a little bit for the Cedric Jones dud they picked in the 1st round. Now their 3rd round pick played 12 seasons in the NFL. Roman Oben, remember him? Tackle, but he only played, was it 5 seasons with the Giants? Let's take a peeky-boo here, shall we? And there 4 years with the Giants. The other 8 years he played 4 with San Diego, 2 with Cleveland, and 2 with Tampa. But so his first 4 seasons were with the Giants. In 97, 98, and 99, he was our starting left tackle. He played all 16 games, all 3 years, 97, 98, and 99. And then after that, they just let him go. Right. But part of the problem also here is with a lot of these guys, okay, all these other guys that they're drafting, when their contracts were pretty much up, the Giants did not want to re-signing them. You can kind of look at it like, because these guys here were drafted by George Young, and Dan Reeves was the coach. When their contracts were up, I guess, Ernie Accorsi and Jim Fossil. Ernie Accorsi was the GM. Jim Fossil was the coach. So it could have wound up being like, I guess Accorsi or Fossil, whatever. We're looking at these guys that got drafted in 1996, and they're like, yeah, they're not my guys. I'm not sinking or swimming with these guys. Let's get rid of them. So, then the Giants wind up with their just in the 4th round, picking another backup quarterback. They took a backup quarterback to back up their backup quarterback, Dave Brown. They took Danny Cannell from Florida State. Now, he had 6 years in the NFL. They were not all with the Giants. Let's see. But as I said, once again, 6 seasons with, and he played 3 seasons with the Giants, 96, 7, 8. Then he played 2 with Atlanta, 99 and 2000, and then he missed a couple seasons, and he came back in 2003 and played with Denver. But Let's see here. How about the next season? Is he there too? Wow. Yeah. Okay. But Danny Canal, he got drafted by George Young and Dan Reeves. He played 3 seasons with the Giants. Then in 1999 and 2000, he went to Atlanta, who was coached by Dan Reeves. So the familiarity there. Danny Canal for the Giants started 10 games in 1997 and 10 games in 1998. Now, 1997, when Fossil was there, the first year of Fossil, Danny Canal was 7-2-1, and it was kind of like, well, maybe do we have our quarterback of the future? But it didn't really pan out to be that way. The second in 1998, he played another 10 games started 10 games for the Giants. It was weird. 97, he was 7-2-1 as a starter. 1998, Danny Canal was 3-7-0 as a starter. Basically, he threw as many touchdown passes as he did interceptions. 1997, all right, 1996, Danny Canal threw 1 touchdown pass, 1 interception. 97, he threw 11 touchdown passes, 9 interceptions. 1998, his final season with the Giants, he threw 11 touchdown passes, 10 interceptions. So with the Giants, he threw 23 touchdowns, 20 interceptions. So, yeah, I mean, if he's your backup quarterback, same thing with Dave Brown and same thing with Ken Graham, right? I mean, are they going to be able to play for the most part, the whole season and take it to a Super Bowl? Chances are probably not, unless you had maybe if you had a star-studded lineup. I mean, a good offensive line, if he had to play for the Dallas Cowboys in like 1993 or 4 or 5 or something like that, with the offensive line they had Emmitt Smith and Harper, right, and Michael Irvin and all of that, hey, he probably could have won a bunch of games with a team like that. The Giants' offense was not that. And I'm gonna go over some stats here in a little bit that their offensive line this year, as far as pass protection, was really bad. But I mean, if you put these guys on maybe a star-studded team, okay. But, what the Giants had, their offensive line, their offensive weapons were, far from star-studded, shall we say. And so they were just basically kind of like backup quarterbacks, right? I mean, he completed 53% of his passes, nothing super spectacular, right? So, but but a 4th-round pick, as I said, as far as a backup quarterback, not bad. Not bad at all. The problem was that they didn't really have a starting quarterback. Then in the 5th round, they did not have a 5th-round pick because, let's go over this here, because they traded with the Minnesota Vikings here. Let's go down to the 5th round here. The Vikings traded, whoops, where are we at here? Okay. The Vikings traded Vincey Glenn, and the Vikings traded their 6th-round pick to the Giants for the Giants' 5th-round pick. So the Vikings moved up, right? They traded away their 6th-round pick and Vincey Glenn to the Giants for the Giants' 5th-round pick. So the Giants did not have a 5th-round pick. However, in the 6th round, the Giants had 2 picks. The Giants had the Vikings pick, and the Giants had their own pick. So with one of the picks, the Giants took Doug Coleman, a linebacker from Nebraska who played 5 seasons in the NFL. I mean, 6th-round pick, he played 5 seasons. Not bad. He played 3 seasons with the Giants, and I guess maybe could possibly kind of be, along the same lines as that. He got drafted by George Young and Dan Reeves, and after a couple of years, he was with Jim Fossil and Ernie Accorsi, and they're like, yeah, this is not our guy. We don't want him. So he played 3 seasons with the Giants, and he played 1 season with Tennessee, and another finished out his career with Cleveland. All right. So then the other 6th-round pick, the New York Giants took Scott Galvin, another linebacker from Tennessee. He played 7 seasons in the NFL. Once again, 7 seasons in the NFL with a 6th-round pick. Not bad. What did he play? He played 4 seasons with the Giants, and his final seasons, 2000, 2001, and 2002, were all with Miami. He was not a starter. He played in almost all the games, but pretty much, I guess maybe special teamers. But as I said, once again, to have 7-year career in the 6th round, not a bad pick. But I said, once again, he's playing 7 seasons, but they all weren't with the Giants, right? Doug Coleman played 5 seasons. They weren't all with the Giants, right? I mean, out of all these guys, Cedric Jones played all of his 5 seasons. The first round selection pick played all 5 seasons with the Giants, but he was not a first round pick, so that was like a bust. Amani Toomer, 13 seasons, played them all with the Giants. But the rest of these guys, including Conrad Hamilton, remember him, in the 7th round, he played 5 seasons, but once he was from East New Mexico. But once again, all of his seasons were not with the Giants. He played, what we got, 96, 97, 98, and 99 with the Giants. And his final season, he missed 2000, but he played, his final season was 2001 with Atlanta. He was the Giants' starting right cornerback in 1998. And he had 1 interception. He had 3 interceptions for his career with the Giants. But, I mean, he was, once again, okay. Nothing super spectacular by any means. But once again, a 7th round pick, right? I mean, to be picked in the 7th round was not a bad pick at all. So as I said, so that's where you kind of get like the best and the worst at all. What's up, Ronnie? Showed up the Cam ball this year. Cam is oh yeah. Yeah. You got it. No, actually, Ronnie, I'm up late. I put a video out, was it 10:30? And I'm still up. After I'm done with this, I'm going to be going to bed. So, but good to see you, Ronnie. Good to see you. I don't. There's nobody here, but it's good to see you. Good to see you. Haven't seen Ronnie in a while, but as I said, that's where, like with the Giants, with I mean, the draft was really good, but it was really bad too. I mean. Cedric Jones, that pick was really, really bad. I mean, George Young really struck out on a lot of his picks from 1991. Jared Bunch, a fullback in the 1st round. 1992, they traded away their compensatory pick for the 1st round at 93 for Dave Brown, and for a quarterback, and he was not a starting quarterback. So they gave up their 1st round selection in 1993 for basically, a backup quarterback. Their 1992 Derek Brown, a tight end from Notre Dame. I think if I remember, he had 11 catches for the Giants in 3 seasons. You take a tight end and he has 11 catches for you in 3 seasons. He's your 1st round selection. I mean, you've got to be effing kidding me. Absolute. He was a good college player, but absolute trash. Then the Giants in 1994 took Thomas Lewis, a wide receiver from Indiana. One of his seasons from 94, 95, 96, this season, he led the team, I think, in receptions with like 54. But the other 3 seasons he was with the Giants, he played 40. The Giants drafted him in the 1st round. He played 4 seasons in the NFL, and his career was over. One season, 1996, he had 54 receptions. The other 3 seasons combined, I think he had like 20 receptions. I mean, he returned a kickoff for a touchdown, but just a bad pick. 95, the Giants took Tyrone Wheatley, who was a very good running back, but he only played like 4 seasons with the Giants. And they let him go, and he had a nice little career with Oakland, the Raiders. And I said then in 1996 with Cedric Jones, just absolute trash. So, I mean, as I said, it was good, good draft and a bad draft. But so what does Wikipedia have to say about the 1996 New York Football Giants season? 1996 New York Giants season was the franchise's 72nd season in the National Football League, and their 4th and final under coach Dan Reeves. The team was looking to improve on its 5-11 finish the year before, which it did, but just barely. In the 1996 NFL Draft, the Giants selected defensive end Cedric Jones with the 5th overall selection. The Giants' first game of the season was at home against the Buffalo Bills and resulted in a 23-20 loss in overtime. And after being shut out by Dallas, New York fell to 0-3 with a 31-10 defeat to the Washington Redskins. Against the Jets, the Giants earned their first victory of the season, a 15-10 win of the season. A 15-10 win over Minnesota left them with 2-3 record heading into their bye week. The team then lost 4 of its next 6 games. After defeating the Cowboys, the Giants' record entering December stood at 5-7. So they had a chance, they had some luck, they had a chance to go 9-7. But the end of the season by losing 3 of their last 4 games. With a 6-10 record, the Giants finished in last place because the year before they were in 4th place. This year they were in last. This year they wound up in 5th place in the NFC East, which was last place. So they wound up in last place, and after the season, the Giants fired Reeves and hired coach Jim Fossil as his replacement. Quarterback Dave Brown started all 16 games for the Giants in 1996, throwing 12 touchdown passes and 20 interceptions. New York's leading running back was Rodney Hampton, who had 254 carries for 827 yards. He started wearing down. He's been a workhorse for so long, so many 1,000-yard seasons, and he was just starting to wear down. I think he averaged like 3.3 yards a carry. I gotta check it out, but I think that's what it was. It's just not very good. Wide receivers Chris Callaway and Thomas Lewis, the Giants' 1994 first-round selection, led the Giants with 4 touchdowns and 53 receptions each. Callaway had a team-high 739 receiving yards. Defensively, Chad Bratzke, who the Giants drafted, and Michael Strahan had the most sacks among Giants players with 5 apiece. So, Michael Strahan, after his first 4 seasons, only had like about 17 sacks, I think it was. So he, his final like 10 seasons, he really started putting stuff together. Let me tell you what. And while Jason Sehorn had 5 interceptions to lead the team. So, once again, same thing with Chad Bratzke. He drafted, he was a decent player. He played like 4 seasons with the Giants, and they didn't want to resign him, and he wound up playing with the Colts. He was a decent player. Decent player. All right, so let's look over the Giants here. What happened? Well, where did they go wrong? Their defense wasn't bad. They gave up 18.6 points per game, which was 10th in the NFL. But once again, it's the theory of relativity, because your offense scored 15 points a game, which was 28th out of 30. If your offense is better, your offense is on the field more, chewing up the clock. Your defense is on the sideline drinking Kool-Aid, right? Not giving up any points, right? So, so the defense only giving up 18 points per game, and the fact that they have an absolutely pathetic offense was pretty remarkable. So that just goes to show you how good of a defense they had. Let's see here. Let's see. Dave Brown started all 16 games. He went 6-10, completed 53.8% of his passes, had 12 touchdowns, 20 interceptions. His interception percentage was 5%. The Giants' top 2 rushers, right? The Giants from 1990 to 1995, in the 6 seasons, those 6 drafts, they took a running back in the first round 3 times. 1990 took Rodney Hampton. They took Jared Bunch, who was fullback / running back in 1991. Then they took Tyrone Wheatley in 1995. They just kept taking running back after running back after running back. And then the thing was, when Rodney Hampton started wearing down, pretty soon right after that, they let Tyrone Wheatley go. So both these guys, and Jared Bunch, his career was over. So all 3 of the guys that they drafted from 1990 to 1995, 3 guys in the first, like 90, 97 or something. I think they were all gone. Anyway, Rodney Hampton led with 827 yards. He had 1 rushing touchdown. The Giants had 4 rushing touchdowns all season. Their offensive line was not very good. Rodney Hampton averaged 3.3 yards a carry. The team as a whole averaged 3.3 yards a carry. They had 4 rushing touchdowns all season long. Absolutely pathetic. Tyrone Wheatley was second. He had 400 yards rushing. He had 1 touchdown. He averaged 3.6 yards a carry. Gary Downs, a running back, he had 94 rushing yards. He averaged 3.2 yards a carry. Charles Way, I always liked him. Sad, once again, he got hurt, but he had a rushing touchdown. He had 79 rushing yards. He averaged 3.6 yards a carry. Keith Elias from Princeton, running back. He had 24 rushing yards. He averaged 2.7 yards a carry. I mean, it's pathetic. The running game was absolutely pathetic. They had 1,600 yards. They averaged 100 yards a game rushing. Yeah, I said, yeah, offensively, I mean, Thomas Lewis and Chris Callaway both led the team with 53 receptions. But other than that, I mean, the receivers, let's say, Aaron Pierce, the tight end, had 11 receptions. Howard Cross, another tight end, had 22 receptions. Lawrence Dorsey, a wide receiver, had 18 receptions. He was third as far as wide receivers. He had 18 receptions. Kevin Alexander, a wide receiver, had 4 receptions. Brian Saxton, a tight end, he had 4. Omar Douglas, a wide receiver, he had 1 catch. Brian Kozlowski, he was a tight end, he had 1 catch. Amani Toomer had 1 catch too. So, I mean, as great as Amani Toomer was, he only had 1 catch for 12 yards in his first season. So, I mean, it was horrible, absolutely horrible. Their passing game. Running game is horrible. Passing game is horrible. Let's see here. Whether the Giants... I mean, the Giants' defense wasn't bad. The Giants only gave up 14 passing touchdowns all season long. I mean, very, very, very impressive. I'm sorry. 14 rushing touchdowns all season long. Once again, very impressive. And they gave up 15 passing touchdowns all game, all season. So they gave up 29 touchdowns all season long. Very, very impressive. 15 passing touchdowns all year. Very impressive. Brad Delwiso he kicked 24 out of 27 field goals, 88.9%. Very, very impressive. But we look here like sacks, okay? The Giants had 30 sacks. They gave up 56. 56 sacks they gave up. Very, very bad. I mean, nobody on Brad Delwiso led them in scoring with 94 points, right? Not, very respectable. But nobody on the team had more than 4 touchdowns. Chris Callaway had 4. Thomas Lewis had 4. So, I mean, had a bunch of guys with 24 points. One guy, Tyrone Wheatley, had 18 points. 3 guys had 12, scored 12 points. I mean, not scoring much of anything. So they scored, what was the total? 242 points in 16 games. Just horrible. Absolutely horrible. As I said, if they had better players, sure that, Dan Reeves, they certainly could have done better, but so what they said in Wikipedia, the Giants started off 0-3. They lost their first game in overtime at home to Buffalo, 23-20. The last game of the season was the one that really just kind of got me. Just really kind of, what I mean? And I don't know if it's what it made the last straw for the Giants or not. But we'll get to the last game just a minute here. But then the Giants got trounced by the Cowboys. They went to week 2. They went and played in Dallas. They lost 27-0. They had 7 first downs. They had 105 yards of total offense. 105 yards, 7 first downs. They lost 27-0. The next week, Washington came to town. They lost 31-10. Now they're 0-3. Then they beat the Jets and Minnesota. So the Giants beat the Jets 13-6. Once again, the defense would keep them in a game. Then they beat Minnesota 15-10. So now the Giants are 2-3 heading into their bye week. So after the bye week, the Giants would lose their next 2. They lost 19-10 to Philadelphia at home. Then they played the Redskins on the road. They lost 31-21. Then the Giants would win the next 2. They played in Detroit, and somehow they beat Detroit 35-7. So now the Giants are 3-5. The following week, Arizona would come to town and play the Giants, and the Giants would beat them 16-8. So now the Giants are 4-5. All right, here we go, baby. No. Giants would lose their next 2. They played in Carolina against the Panthers. The Panthers were a good team. The Giants lost 27-17. Then the Giants would travel to Arizona, and they lost to the Cardinals 31-23. So now the Giants are 4-7. But it was a very, very impressive victory. The Giants would beat the Dallas Cowboys 20-6 at home. So that was a very impressive victory. Now the Giants are 5-7. Then, of course, the Giants had a hard time beating the Eagles, as seems like always. The Giants played in Philadelphia, and they lost 24-0. So they were shut out for their second time in the season. Not impressive. Then the Giants would play in Miami, and they would actually beat the Dolphins 17-7. So now the Giants were 6-8. They had 2 games left. They were 6-8. They had a chance to at least be 500. Now, possibly, if they won their final 2 games with their quarterback woes and this, that, and they were at least 8-8. Not a winning season, but not a losing season. Would have been an improvement over the year before. Maybe Dan Reeves would have kept his job, but they lost 17-3. Once again, an absolutely gutless, pathetic performance on offense. At home against the Saints, they lost 17-3. They had 10 first downs. They had 138 yards of total offense. They had 48 passing yards and 90 rushing yards, and they had 4 turnovers. Just pathetic, absolutely pathetic. But the thing that might have been maybe because you're never going to be able to talk to George Young or Wellington Mara, whoever made the decision to fire Dan Reeves. But quite possibly was the final game of the season. Might have been the last straw. The Giants were 6-9. If they would have beaten the New England Patriots, they would have been 7-9. Once again, you don't know. He maybe would have got fired. You don't know. But, because New England Patriots at the time in 1996 were coached by Bill Parcells. So the Giants at home, all right, they're up 22-0 at halftime. They lost 23-22. They were up 22-3 going into the fourth quarter. The Patriots scored, and the Patriots scored 20 points. They scored 3 touchdowns in the last quarter. 3 touchdowns. One of them was from Dave Meggett on a 60-yard punt return. And just goes to show you. This guy, 1996, right? Adam Vinatieri kicked the extra point. Now, he just retired a couple of years ago, right? 1996, he was kicking extra points for the New England Patriots. 1996, and he just retired about a year or 2 ago? Holy cow. But, that might have been the last straw, which, the Giants were up 22-3 at home. They couldn't score a point in the second half. If they had scored, whatever, a couple points, if they got in a field goal in the second half, they would have wound up winning. But they gave up a touchdown pass to Terry Glenn. Dave Meggett returned a punt 60 yards for a touchdown. And then Ben Coates, he was very good. He was he had some good fantasy stat points. Let me tell you what, back in the mid 90s, oh yeah, I had him on my team one year. He was a very good tight end to have for your fantasy. Absolutely. But the Giants gave up 3 touchdowns in the final quarter to the New England Patriots, who was coached by Bill Parcells, and one of them was the Dave Meggett, too, who the Giants had. And, so I don't know if that, once again, I don't know if that was the final straw or what it was, but, just a horrible season, absolutely horrible season. 6-10. They were pretty much going nowhere. Their offense was absolutely pathetic. They had a defense, but they needed a change. They needed some offense. And, they needed a change. So, Dan Reeves was fired, and they brought Jim Fossil in after the season was over with. So, and of course, the Giants wound up doing good. In 1997, they wound up winning. Oh, sorry, let's say I'm excited. All right. Let's see. I got emoji. I'm gonna do an emoji. Add emoji. Remove. Pin. Go to channel. Hide. Put. No. Remove. Report. Pin. Message. Go to channel. No, I can't. Yeah. All right. Cool. Hey, Ronnie. There you go. Oh, Ronnie. Ronnie was with me all the time last year. Every time I was doing videos last year. Ronnie was always there. Always there. All right, so the Giants wind up, 6-10. Not a very good season, So they wound up in 5th place, last place in the NFC East. So Dan Reeves wound up getting fired. So it was not a good season. So let's go to the 1996 season here. All right. What does Wikipedia say? The 1996 NFL season was the 77th regular season in the history of the National Football League, and the season was marked by notable controversies from beginning to end. Most significantly, the Cleveland Browns relocation controversy resulted in the then unique legal settlement where the Cleveland Browns franchise, history, records, and intellectual property remained in Cleveland, with the Browns officially deactivated, while its players and personnel transferred to Baltimore, technically to a new league franchise that was named the Baltimore Ravens. The season ended with Super Bowl where the Green Bay Packers defeated the New England Patriots and Bill Parcells 35-21 in the Louisiana Superdome. So I mean, the Patriots were a good team that year. You know, obviously Bill Parcells once again, taking a second team to a Super Bowl. You know, rather remarkable. So we have in the AFC, the playoffs in the AFC, right? New England won with a record of 11-5 in the AFC East. The Bills and the Colts, the Bills were 10-6, the Colts were 9-7. So the Bills and the Colts were two of the wild card teams. The AFC Central, the Steelers won with a record of 10-6. Jacksonville Jaguars, right? Old Tom Coughlin, they won. They were 9-7, and they would go to the championship game. More on that just a second here, but they were a wild card team with a record of 9-7. The Denver Broncos were 13-3, and they won the AFC West. So in the AFC playoffs, Jacksonville beat Buffalo in Buffalo 30-27. Pittsburgh whooped up on Indianapolis 42-14, sending those two teams to the divisional round. In the divisional round, Jacksonville upset big time Denver, who was 13-3. Tom Coughlin in Jacksonville upset Denver with John Elway and all that, 30-27, sending Jacksonville to the championship game. New England beat Pittsburgh 28-3, sending New England to the championship game. In the championship game, you know, it was in Foxborough Stadium, home in New England. The Patriots would beat Jacksonville. Bill Parcells would beat Tom Coughlin 20-6, sending Bill Parcells and the New England Patriots to the Super Bowl. Let's go to the NFC. The Dallas Cowboys and the Philadelphia Eagles were both tied at 10-6. However, Dallas won the division. Why did they win the division? Dallas finished ahead of Philadelphia in the NFC East based on a better record against common opponents. Dallas was 7-4 against common opponents. The Eagles were 6-5. So Dallas got the nod. Dallas got the win the NFC East. In the NFC Central, Green Bay won with a record of 13-3. They won the Super Bowl with Brett Favre, and also once again a very, very good team. Minnesota came in second place in 9-7 in the NFC Central. So Minnesota was another wild card team. In the NFC West, the Carolina Panthers were 12-4, and so were the 49ers at 12-4. Now, mind you, Carolina's in their second season of existence. They were 12-4. Holy cow. All right? Holy cow. Carolina finished ahead of San Francisco in the NFC West based on better head-to-head sweep. So Carolina beat the 49ers. Both games they played them in head-to-head. So that's why Carolina won the NFC West and the 49ers did not. So the 49ers at 12-4 were a wild card team. So in the NFC playoffs, Dallas beat Minnesota 40-15. San Francisco shut out the Eagles 14-0. So now in the divisional round, Carolina hosted the Cowboys, and in their second year of existence, in Carolina's first ever playoff game, they beat the Dallas Cowboys 26-17. And in Lambeau Field, the Green Bay Packers and Brett Favre beat San Francisco 49ers 35-14, setting up the championship game at Lambeau Field. It was the Carolina Panthers in their second year of existence going to the championship game, playing up against Green Bay, and Green Bay would wind up winning 30-13, sending Green Bay to the Super Bowl against Bill Parcells and the New England Patriots. So in the Super Bowl, it was an interesting Super Bowl, to say the least. Actually, New England a 14-10 lead in the after the first quarter, but then the final three quarters, the Patriots only scored a touchdown. Green Bay scored 17 points in the second quarter. So at halftime, they were winning 27-14. Each team basically scored a touchdown in the third quarter, and nobody scored in the fourth quarter. But one of the touchdowns, how far was it? Desmond Howard. See what was kind of the killer? Okay, Curtis Martin with 3 minutes and 27 seconds left to go in the third quarter. So maybe a couple minutes to go in the third quarter. Curtis Martin had an 18-yard touchdown run. Adam Vinatieri kicked the extra point. So now the score is 27-21. New England is within 6 points. It's anybody's game. On the ensuing kickoff, Desmond Howard ran it back 99 yards for a touchdown. And they went for a 2-point conversion. The pass was good. Brett Favre to Mark Chmura. And so they gave the Packers 8 points. So 17 seconds later, right, the Packers answered, and they got 8 points, making it 35-21. And there was another one. Let's see here. Oh, Antonio Freeman had 81-yard touchdown reception from Brett Favre too. So I mean, they had a couple big plays in there. Those couple big plays. I mean, it was like, what was it? Both teams had 16 first downs. The Patriots had 257 yards. The Packers had 323, but those two big plays from the Packers, plus the fact that the New England Patriots had 4 turnovers, wound up being huge. But I mean, even beside Drew Bledsoe had 4 interceptions, right? Brett Favre, was only 14 out of 27 for 246 yards. He had 2 touchdown passes, but he had no interceptions. So I mean, New England's defense did very, very good. It was Drew Bledsoe and his 4 interceptions. And those 2 long plays that the Packers had, right? I mean, you figure the Packers had 323 yards of total offense, 81 of them came on 1 play. So you take that 1 play away, and they had like 250 yards of offense for the whole game. I mean, it was a close game. But I mean, the thing that really did was, as soon as the Patriots scored to make it 27-21 with 3 minutes left to go in the third quarter, now it's anybody's game. On the ensuing kickoff, Desmond Howard, 99 yards for a touchdown. And with the 2-point conversion, made it 35-21, put the Packers up by 2 full scores, and nobody scored in the fourth quarter. And Bill Parcells had a fantastic season with the Patriots, took them to the Super Bowl, but they fell a little bit short. I was pulling for them. As much as I maybe pull for the NFC teams and all that. So I was pulling for Bill Parcells. I was kind of really hoping they would have kind of won, but it was just not meant to be. But that would be the last time that Bill Parcells would get to a Super Bowl. He would take after he left in New England, he would go coach the Jets. He would take the Jets to a championship game, AFC championship game, a couple of years later, 2 years later, I think it was. But the Jets would lose. And then after he left the Jets, he would take the Cowboys to the playoffs, but they never got to a championship game. So, So, I mean, Dan Reeves, 4 seasons with the Giants. First 2 are winning seasons, right? The first one went to the playoffs, 11-5. Next season, they were 9-7. But then his final 2 seasons were, losing seasons. I mean, some of them, maybe it was his fault, but there was no weapons. They couldn't run the ball. They couldn't pass the ball. They had no good wide receivers. They had no good tight ends. I mean, what do you want? I mean, they had a backup quarterback playing all 16 games for him. What do you expect? So unfortunately, I mean, it wound up working out good for him because he wound up going to Atlanta and taking them to a Super Bowl. So actually, it wound out pretty good for Dan Reeves. But so the 4 seasons of Dan Reeves is over with. Then we have Mr. Fossil coming in 1997. And 1997 would be a special season because the Giants would bounce back, have a winning season, win the division, and go to the playoffs. Although, the Fossil would have, Jim Fossil would have probably maybe the 2, quite possibly the 2 most gut-wrenching, just want to just take a knife and just stab yourself right in the heart, gut-wrenching, life-sucking, killing playoff losses in Giants history. And one of them would come in 1997. So, but that's for tomorrow night. So that pretty much wraps up the 1996 season. As I said, I'll be back again tomorrow night with the 1997 season. All right, and I'll see you again, Ronnie. 1997 season would just happen to be the 73rd season in history of the New York Giants. I'll see you then.